There is a moment in every liar's life when the lies stop working. Not because the liar runs out of lies. Liars never run out of lies. That's what makes them liars. They can generate falsehoods the way the rest of us generate breath, automatically, effortlessly, without conscious thought. One lie leads to the next, leads to the next, leads to the next, an infinite chain of fabrication that sustains itself through sheer momentum. No. The lies stop working when someone stands up, all in public, on camera, with receipts, and says the most dangerous sentence in any language. That is a lie. And here is the proof. Not I disagree, not that's misleading, not sources close to the matter suggest a different interpretation. That is a lie. Here is the proof. Today, 1.2 billion people, one out of every six human beings alive on this planet, watched a Canadian prime minister stand at a podium in Ottawa, look into a camera, and do exactly that for 52 minutes, point by point, lie by lie, with documents, with audio forensics, with video statements from world leaders, with the president's own social media posts displayed on screens behind him. 52 minutes of surgical, methodical, evidence backed demolition of every single thing the President of the United States said this morning in the White House Rose Garden. Not spin, not interpretation, not political counter narrative. Proof. Here is what he said. Here is why it's false. Here is the document that proves it. Here is the audio that contradicts it. Here is the video of the world leader he claimed apologized to him, saying on camera, recorded 2 hours ago, that no such apology occurred. Lie, proof, lie, proof, lie, proof. 17 times, 17 specific factual claims, 17 documented falsehoods, zero surviving. At 11:47 this morning, Donald Trump stood in the Rose Garden and told the American people, told the world, a version of this crisis that bore no relationship to reality. He said the tariffs were legal. They weren't. A 5-judge panel ruled them illegal unanimously. He said the classified documents were fabricated. They weren't. The U.S. State Department confirmed their authenticity this morning under FOIA law. He said world leaders were coerced into criticizing him and apologized privately. They weren't, and they didn't. 25 of them recorded video statements calling Trump's claim a lie. He said he never threatened Canadian sovereignty. He did. His own social media post is still live, still public, still readable by anyone with a phone. He said the audio recording of him threatening to destroy Canada's economy was AI generated. It wasn't. 3 independent forensic laboratories on 3 continents certified it as authentic and unmanipulated. He said Congress is committing treason. It isn't. Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution of the United States explicitly grants Congress the power to override presidential vetoes. Carney held up a copy of the Constitution and read the relevant passage aloud on global television to 1.2 billion people, while the President of the United States sat in the White House watching his lies get autopsied on live TV, unable to respond because the evidence was irrefutable. This was not a diplomatic dispute. This was not a disagreement between allies over policy. This was a foreign leader calling the President of the United States a liar, using that word liar without diplomatic softening, without hedging, without the polite fictions that normally govern international communication, and then proving it. With evidence so comprehensive, so documented, so independently verified that no reasonable person watching could reach any conclusion other than the one Carney stated plainly. President Trump lied, not once, not twice, but repeatedly and deliberately. 1.2 billion people heard that verdict, and 68% of Americans polled within 2 hours of Carney's press conference said they believe Carney's version of events over their own presidents, their own president, the man they elected, the man who swore an oath to them, the man who is supposed to represent their interests, protect their security, and tell them the truth about the world. 68% of Americans trust the Canadian Prime Minister more than they trust him. Trump's lies have been exposed. His credibility is destroyed. And the reputation of the United States, the nation that once led the free world, that once set the standard for democratic governance, that once stood as the example other countries aspired to. That reputation has collapsed before the eyes of the entire planet in 52 minutes. In this breakdown, I'm going to walk you through Trump's most egregious lies and Carney's point-by-point refutations, because the specific evidence matters and the specific lies matter, and the contrast between the two tells you everything about who is leading and who is flailing. I'm going to show you the specific evidence Carney presented, the audio certifications, the FOIA confirmations, the video statements from world leaders, the constitutional text, and why each piece of evidence is independently verifiable and irrefutable. I'm going to reveal the immediate global reaction and why this is being called the most devastating fact check in political history by analysts, historians, and journalists across the world. I'm going to explain why Carney chose to directly call Trump a liar, using that exact word, abandoning every diplomatic convention, and why that decision was strategically calculated to maximum effect. And I'm going to give you analysis of what happens to American credibility with allies, with adversaries, with markets, with the American people themselves, when the president has been publicly, comprehensively, and irrefutably proven to be lying on fundamental matters of international importance. Subscribe to join the community. Leave a comment so we can keep the conversation going, and share this video, because what happened today isn't just about U.S.-Canada relations. It's about whether truth still matters, whether evidence still matters, whether a leader can lie to 340 million people and get away with it when someone else is willing to stand up with proof. Today, we got the answer, and the answer is no, not anymore. Let me walk you through Trump's press conference first, because you need to hear what he said, the specific claims, the specific language, the specific fabrications, to fully appreciate the scale of what Carney did in response. 11:47 a.m., the White House Rose Garden, Trump at the podium, no teleprompter, no prepared remarks, no advisors flanking him, just the president and his lies. For 37 minutes, Trump delivered what can only be described as an unhinged rant, a torrent of false claims, conspiracy theories, attacks on allies, attacks on Congress, attacks on reality itself. That would have been disqualifying for a candidate, let alone a sitting president. He opened with the framing, the big lie that contains all the smaller lies. Canada has been lying about this entire crisis. That's the umbrella. Everything that follows fits underneath it. If Canada is lying, then every piece of evidence Canada has presented is fabricated. Every document is fake. Every recording is manipulated. Every world leader who sided with Canada was coerced. The entire global response to the crisis is a conspiracy. It's a simple framework, and it requires only one thing to sustain itself that nobody checks. Somebody checked. Lie number one. The tariffs I imposed were fully legal under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. Canada's claim that the tariffs violated USMCA is a lie. Section 232 allows the president to impose tariffs for national security reasons. Trump has used this provision before on steel and aluminum in his first term. The legal theory is that certain imports threaten domestic production capacity that is necessary for national defense. But Section 232 does not override treaty obligations. USMCA, the trade agreement Trump himself negotiated, signed, and celebrated, contains specific provisions in Article 2.4 prohibiting tariffs between member states except under narrow defined circumstances. None of those circumstances apply here. The USMCA Dispute Resolution Panel ruled unanimously, with judges chosen by both sides, that Trump's tariffs were illegal under the agreement. Trump claimed the tariffs were legal. A 5-judge international tribunal said they weren't. That's not a matter of opinion. That's a matter of legal ruling. And Trump lied about it. Lie number two. The classified documents Canada released were fabricated. My intelligence agencies have confirmed that those documents are fake. This is the lie that requires the most audacity, because it was disproven not by Canadian sources, not by media analysis, not by anonymous leakers, but by the United States government itself. A Freedom of Information Act request filed by a Canadian citizen, processed through standard U.S. legal channels, asked the U.S. State Department whether the documents Canada released were genuine. The State Department, complying with FOIA law, American law binding on American government agencies, confirmed that the documents are authentic U.S. government records. Trump's own State Department confirmed the documents are real, under law, on the record. Additionally, 3 former U.S. officials who worked on Canada policy confirmed to multiple news organizations on the record with their names attached that they recognized the documents as genuine because they participated in creating them. Trump said the documents were fabricated. His own government, under his own laws, confirmed they were authentic. He lied. Lie number 3. The world leaders who appeared at Canada's propaganda event last night were coerced. Many of them called me privately to apologize. 47 world leaders appeared at Carney's press conference last night. Trump claimed they were forced to participate and privately told him they support the United States. Lie number 4. Canada cut off energy to hurt the American people. That's election interference. This lie requires ignoring the entire timeline of the crisis, a timeline that is publicly documented, a timeline that Carney would later display on a screen for 1.2 billion viewers, a timeline that shows clearly and indisputably that every Canadian action was a response to a prior American aggression. February 1st, Trump imposed tariffs. February 14th, Trump posted about Canadian provinces joining the U.S. February 28th, Trump threatened on a recorded call to destroy Canada's economy. March 7th, after all of that, Canada suspended energy exports. Canada didn't initiate. Canada responded. The energy cutoff is a consequence of Trump's actions, not a cause of the crisis. And framing it as election interference is an attempt to make Canada the villain in a story where the villain has been in the White House since day one. Lie number 5. I never threatened Canada's sovereignty. I never suggested Canadian provinces should join the United States. His Truth Social post from February 14th is still live, still public, still readable by anyone with a phone and an internet connection. The words, "Maybe Alberta and Saskatchewan should hold referendums," written by Trump, posted by Trump, never deleted by Trump. He denied saying something that is currently visible on his own social media platform. That is not a misremembering. That is not a mischaracterization. That is a lie about a fact that anyone can verify in 30 seconds. Lie number 6, Congress is committing treason by overriding my veto. Article 1, Section 7 of the United States Constitution. If after such reconsideration 2/3 of that House shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent, together with the objections to the other House, by which it shall likewise be reconsidered, and if approved by 2/3 of that House, it shall become a law. That's the Constitution, not an interpretation, not a legal theory, the text, the literal words. Congress overriding a presidential veto is not treason. It is a constitutional power. It is democracy functioning as designed. And calling it treason is not just a lie. It is a lie about the foundational document of the American Republic. And then the most audacious lie of all. When asked about the audio recording, the recording of Trump threatening to destroy Canada's economy, the recording that has been heard by hundreds of millions of people, the recording that every news organization has played, the recording that 62% of Americans said justified Canada's response, Trump said, that recording was manipulated. My voice was AI generated. I never said those things. AI generated. The President of the United States claimed that his own recorded voice on a diplomatic call that was conducted with his knowledge that it was being recorded was artificial intelligence. That is not a political spin. That is not a reframing. That is a claim so detached from reality, so insulting to the intelligence of every person who has heard it, so transparently desperate that it doesn't even qualify as a lie. It qualifies as a delusion publicly performed. Trump took questions after his prepared remarks, and the answers were even worse. When asked about the 47 nations that criticized the U.S. last night, Trump said, most of those countries are third world nations that don't matter. The important allies still support us. Third world nations that don't matter. The United Kingdom, third world, France, doesn't matter. Germany, irrelevant. Japan, unimportant. These are the nations that fought beside America in every major conflict. That built the post-war order alongside America. That have been the foundation of American global influence for 80 years. And the President of the United States dismissed them as countries that don't matter on global television, while those countries' citizens watched. 37 minutes, 17 specific lies, zero evidence supporting any of them, and the entire performance broadcast to a world that was already losing faith in American leadership. Then Trump left the podium, and the clock started ticking. At 12:34 p.m., 47 minutes after Trump's press conference ended, Mark Carney appeared at a podium in Ottawa. Behind him, 3 large screens. In front of him, the assembled global press corps. And beyond them, through cameras feeding to every network, every streaming platform, every news website on earth, 1.2 billion viewers. Carney did not open with diplomatic pleasantries. He did not acknowledge the difficulty of the moment. He did not express hope for a resolution. He did not use any of the softening language that international protocol demands when one head of government addresses the statements of another. He opened with 4 sentences that shattered every diplomatic convention of the modern era. 1 hour ago, President Trump held a press conference where he made numerous claims about the U.S.-Canada crisis. I watched that press conference. I am now going to address President Trump's claims directly. I will not use diplomatic language. I will use plain language. And then the sentence, the one that will be in every history book, the one that 1.2 billion people heard at the same moment, the one that no amount of spin, denial, or counter-narrative can undo. President Trump lied. He lied repeatedly. He lied about matters of fact that are easily proven. Pause. I'm going to prove it. And then he did. Refutation 1. The tariffs were illegal. Carney turned to the screens. A document appeared. The ruling from the USMCA Dispute Resolution Panel, dated February 20th, 2026. This is the ruling from the USMCA Dispute Resolution Panel. The panel consisted of 5 trade law experts, 2 chosen by the United States, 2 chosen by Canada, and 1 chosen jointly. He let that detail sit because it matters. 2 of the 5 judges were American picks. Trump's own government chose them, and even they ruled against Trump. The panel ruled unanimously that U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum violated USMCA Article 2.4, which prohibits tariffs between member states except under specific circumstances. Section 232 does not override treaty obligations. Unanimously, including the American chosen judges. The legal question was asked. The legal system answered, the tariffs are illegal. President Trump's tariffs were illegal under the trade agreement his own administration negotiated. This is not opinion. This is a legal ruling. And then the verdict. President Trump lied when he said the tariffs were legal. Lie 1, dead. Refutation. 2, the documents are authentic. Carney held up a document, not a Canadian document, an American document. This is a Freedom of Information Act request filed by a Canadian citizen with the U.S. government on March 9th. The request asked for any documents related to Canada that were released by Canadian authorities. This morning, the U.S. State Department, complying with FOIA law, confirmed that the documents Canada released are authentic U.S. government documents. He held it up, turned it toward the cameras, let them photograph it, let the world see the letterhead, the date stamp, the confirmation. The State Department's response is public. Anyone can verify it. Anyone. Not trust me. Not take my word for it. Anyone can verify it. That's the difference between a leader presenting evidence and a leader demanding belief. Carney invites verification. Trump demands faith. Additionally, 3 former U.S. officials who worked on Canada policy have confirmed on the record to multiple news organizations that they recognize the documents as genuine because they participated in creating them. On the record, names attached, careers staked, people who were in the room when these documents were written confirming, we wrote them, they're real. President Trump lied when he said the documents were fabricated. Lie 2, dead. Refutation. 3, world leaders were not coerced. Carney turned to the screens again. And what appeared next was the most devastating visual of the entire press conference. President Trump claims the 47 leaders who participated in yesterday's press conference were forced to participate and that they apologized to him privately. Here is the reality. The screen showed a video. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer recorded 2 hours earlier, speaking directly to camera in his own words. I have read reports that President Trump claims I apologized to him for my statements yesterday. That is false. I have had no communication with President Trump. I stand by every word I said yesterday. The United States under President Trump cannot be trusted. The video ended. The room was silent. Then another video. French President Emmanuel Macron recorded 1 hour earlier. President Trump claims I was coerced into criticizing the United States. That is a lie. I participated in yesterday's press conference because I believe the international community must hold the United States accountable. No one coerced me. No one apologized to President Trump. And then Carney delivered the scale of the rebuttal. I have similar statements from German Chancellor Scholz, Japanese Prime Minister Kishida, and 22 other leaders who participated yesterday. All of them state that President Trump's claim is false. 25 world leaders on video, individually, each one specifically denying Trump's claim, each one using the word false or lie, each one recorded within hours of Trump's press conference. Trump said they apologized to him. They recorded videos calling him a liar. President Trump lied when he said world leaders apologized to him. Lie 3, dead. Refutation. 4, Canada responded. Canada didn't initiate. Carney held up a timeline. Dates, events, actions, cause and effect laid out in chronological order that a child could follow. President Trump claims Canada cut off energy to hurt Americans and to interfere in U.S. democracy. Here is the reality. February 1st, Trump imposed tariffs. Canada didn't. February 14th, Trump posted about Canadian provinces joining the U.S. Canada didn't threaten American territory. February 28th, Trump threatened on a recorded call to destroy Canada's economy. Canada didn't threaten to destroy America's economy. March 7th, after 5 weeks of escalating American aggression, Canada suspended energy exports. Canada did not initiate this crisis. Canada responded to U.S. actions. President Trump caused the energy cutoff through his own decisions. The timeline is public. The dates are documented. The sequence is undeniable. Trump acted first, again and again and again, and Canada responded. President Trump lied when he claimed Canada weaponized energy unprovoked. Lie 4, dead. Refutation. 5, the sovereignty threats are on his own platform. Carney didn't even need external evidence for this one. He just showed the screen. President Trump claims he never suggested Canadian provinces should join the United States. Here is the reality. The screen displayed Trump's Truth Social post from February 14th. His own words, his own platform, still live, still public, undeleted. Maybe Alberta and Saskatchewan should hold referendums. Canada is really just northern USA anyway. Carney let the screen speak for itself. Let 1.2 billion people read the president's own words while he denied writing them. Let the absurdity of the lie do the work that no commentary could improve upon. That is President Trump, in his own words, suggesting Canadian provinces join the United States. President Trump lied when he denied making sovereignty threats. Lie 5, dead. Refutation. 6, the Constitution says Congress can override. Carney held up a document, not a Canadian document, not a legal brief, not an expert opinion, the United States Constitution. President Trump claims Congress is committing treason by overriding his veto. Here is the reality. He opened to Article 1, Section 7, and he read the text aloud. The text that every American learns in school. The text that is the foundation of the legislative process, the text that specifically, explicitly, unambiguously grants Congress the power to override presidential vetoes. Exercising constitutional authority is not treason. It is democracy. President Trump lied when he characterized congressional override as treason. Lie 6, dead. And then the audio, the final lie. the most audacious one, the one where Trump looked into cameras and claimed his own voice was artificial intelligence. Carney held up a document, then another, then a third. This is a certification from an independent audio forensics laboratory in the United States. This is a certification from an independent audio forensics laboratory in the United Kingdom. This is a certification from an independent audio forensics laboratory in Germany. 3 countries, 3 independent labs, 0 coordination between them, each one analyzing the recording separately, each one reaching the same conclusion. All 3 laboratories concluded that the recording is authentic, that it has not been manipulated, and that the voice is President Trump's natural voice, not AI generated. 3 labs, 3 countries, 3 certifications, all saying the same thing. That's his real voice saying the things he denied saying, and then the final nail. Additionally, this is a statement from the Swiss embassy in Washington, which facilitated the call. The Swiss ambassador confirms that the call occurred, that it was recorded with both parties' knowledge, as is standard diplomatic practice, and that the recording Canada released is the complete and unedited conversation. The Swiss embassy, the neutral third party, the country synonymous with neutrality, with discretion, with diplomatic propriety, confirming the call happened. It was recorded. Both sides knew the recording is complete and unedited. President Trump lied when he claimed the recording was fake. 7 lies, 7 refutations, 7 kills. Carney took a breath. The screens behind him went dark, and he spoke directly, not to the press, not to the diplomatic community, not to the governments watching, but to the people, all of them, the 1.2 billion watching live, and the billions more who would see the clips within hours. I have now addressed President Trump's major claims. I have proven with documents, with audio forensic analysis, with video statements from world leaders, and with constitutional law that President Trump lied. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly and deliberately. Then the question that elevates this from fact check to historical reckoning. Why did I take the time to do this? Because the world needs to understand that the crisis between Canada and the United States is not based on misunderstandings or good faith disagreements. It is based on one man's refusal to accept reality and his willingness to lie to protect his ego. One man, his refusal, his ego. Carney located the entire crisis, a crisis affecting hundreds of millions of people, trillions of dollars, the security architecture of a continent, inside the psychology of a single human being. Not a system failure, not a policy error, not a strategic miscalculation. A man who cannot admit he's wrong and who will lie to 340 million Americans and 8 billion human beings rather than say 3 words, "I was wrong." The American people deserve better than a president who lies to them. The international community deserves better than a United States that cannot be trusted because its president invents his own facts. And then the prediction, the statement about tomorrow that functions as both reassurance and warning. Tomorrow, the United States Congress will pass clarification legislation forcing President Trump to implement the 5 requirements Canada demanded. That legislation will pass with overwhelming bipartisan majorities. It will become law over President Trump's objection. And the world will see that American democracy, while damaged, still functions.